So this video is going to address the things that I didn't really get a chance to talk about in class. These are thesis or paragraph level concerns that I have, and I want to make sure that I talk to you about them. So you've got these notes. So this is just to augment those notes. Okay. So the big thing that I was seeing in a lot of our thesis statements was we've got some issues concerning how they are constructed. So let's first take a look at one that's really good. Okay, so this top one is a good thesis statement. All right, so let me see, grab a highlighter. So while social media can help people communicate with others, okay, that's a clear statement. Okay, it actually harms society. All right, so I know what this student is talking about. So they're qualifying. So what qualifying means is they are acknowledging the opposition or the opposite of what they're saying. They're making a concession. Yes, people can communicate, but it actually harms people. So then what are they actually arguing? So they're qualifying by saying like, yeah, I admit that it helps people communicate, but there's harm that happens. Social networking sites strip people of their privacy, and when their privacy is gone, people are more concerned about their popularity. Now, yes, we could work on some of the word choice here because we just talked about the poopy verbs. However, what I do want to point out is this student is talking about privacy and popularity, right? So those are the two things that they're talking about, but they don't just say, oh, it's bad because there's privacy and people are concerned about popularity. They're actually showing a relationship between the two. So this is not saying, I'm just going to talk about these two things. They're explaining these two things are related, that the social networking sites strip people of their privacy, like nice verb, and then it's when that privacy is gone. So social media sites have already done that, and so when that privacy is gone, they're concerned about the popularity. So they're not just saying, oh yeah, like, you know, I'm just going to talk about privacy and popularity. They're showing a clear relationship between the two. Okay, so that clear relationship is articulated with this transition here. Okay, this is a really good thesis because I know what their position is, even though they're qualifying, it harms society. I know the topics they're going to address, the helping of communication, the privacy, and the popularity, and I see how these things are related. Even though it does this, it also takes away the privacy, which in turn makes them worry about popularity. That is a really good thesis. Okay. However, not all of us have been doing that. So let's take a look at these two. Both of these thesis statements don't take a side. So they're saying it's both good, but it's also bad. Now, I know what you're going to say. I'm saying that's qualifying. No, qualifying is when you acknowledge the other side. Qualifying is when you say, yeah, it's not always harmful, but here's where it is harmful. You're showing the extent of the harm. And so in that case, they're qualifying because they're saying like, yeah, it's good in this case, but it's harmful in these cases. Qualifying shows the extent of the argument, right? The extent of your position. So when it comes to communication, no, you don't have an issue with social media. It's when you talk about privacy, then popularity, concerns with popularity, that's where you have the problem. So qualifying is not saying it's good and bad. So that's when we take a look at these ones. So social media sites tend to be unsafe for other users and companies to learn about someone through their actions on social media. In general, that idea is a little confusing like overall. Unsafe as other users and company. No, that's not unclear. So it's unsafe because companies and other users can learn about actions. And then it says, ultimately, social media can bring society and people together and keep them connected. Okay, so in this case, it's good, or no, it's bad right here, but it's good right here. The idea is unclear. Now, I know what the student is going to be saying. The student is going to be saying, oh, but I say it right here. I use the word ultimately. Ultimately says like that's the bigger argument. Yeah, but you only have one word to show that. You have an automatic transition that creates a lot of confusion. Instead, why don't you have a manual transition? Or and you do split it up into two sentences, like actually say the word harms, right? Or benefits. For this one, social networking continues to be a valuable resource constantly used in society to connect people in many ways. However, the beloved social networking sites we often use has content potentially harmful to its users. So again, you're saying it's good, but it's also bad. So, like, which is it? I have no idea. That is really unclear. They're saying, then again, the student is going to say, but Ms. Hannah, use a transition. And you do. But the transition just tells me I'm going to talk about something else now. It doesn't show a relationship between these two. And so both of these say it's good and bad. This one up here says there are good things, but ultimately it's harmful. And then you say why it's harmful? Because of this. So you got to make sure that your thesis statement takes a position. So the next group of thesis statements takes a position, but it's still lacking in being an effective thesis. So let's take a look here. The advent of social media has a... Oh, I don't want that one. The advent of social media has allowed millions to connect and share ideas, as well as create educational opportunities and benefit those with health problems. So, this is what I call a big kid bing bang bongo. Because we've got connect, educate, and benefit with health problems. But I don't see a relationship between these two. So like this student could say this connection can help those with health problems because it educates others. That would be fine. Or they could say like users are educated about those with health problems, which thus benefit those with health problems due to this connections. But right now, I don't know what the relationship is between these two. They just seem like three different ideas thrown into the same sentence, which is exactly what a bing bang bongo is they're all about the same topic, social media, but you've got three different seemingly unrelated ideas. They just happen to, that you're going to have a body paragraph for each one. Here, you want to show a relationship. What's the relationship between a connection, educational opportunity, and benefits with health for people with health problems? Now let's take a look at this next one here. Though social media can lead to false understanding of current issues and detrimental emotional effects, so like this is that one. So they use that one. That's a topic. It ultimately brings us closer together by allowing people to connect faster and enabling relationships with people who otherwise would have not been able to contact or would not have had contact with. So again, they're qualifying, which is good. That can lead to false understanding. It brings us, so they say that brings us closer together. Okay, so that's good. They could still have a more clearer position. So they're kind of suffering from what's up top here. Are you saying it's good or it's bad? But here they say connect faster in enabling relationships. How are those related? They're simply saying it does this and this. Instead, you should be saying what the relationship is between the two. Just simply saying it does this and this, that is what I would call a superficial argument. So like anybody can say it does this and this. Your responsibility is to show a relationship between those things. And then this one below here. Social media has been around for a little while now, and recently fake news has been spreading like cancer. Okay, that seems intense. But this should not overshadow the qualities of social media, like how it provides new ways of communication and new opportunities of education. Again, we've got this and this with no clear relationship between the two. How is new ways of communication and new opportunities for education, how are those related? I don't know. They just seem like two topics that happen to be sitting next to each other. I could literally put any other topic here and take it out, and the sentence would still make sense. All right? So you need to make sure that you take a stance, but also show a relationship between the different topics. And then this last one here, there's organizational problems with this, meaning that the way the thesis is constructed kind of creates for some confusion. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about here. Social media has both benefits and drawbacks. Okay, so that's not great. You don't want to start with benefits and drawbacks. You don't, that should be clear in your thesis. But in today's world, the drawbacks greatly outweigh the benefits. Okay, at least now there's a position. Could be worded better, but at least there's a clear position. The availability of personal information to third parties and the rapid spread of disinformation, okay, so that's the bad thing, outweighs the way that social media connects people and the mental effect social media has. Wait, oh my gosh. Then it says the mental effect on social media on people is overall problematic? What? This is very confusing. So they say bad, good, bad again. What? And again, this is kind of an issue because there's not a clear relationship between the two. Not between the two, but between all of these ideas. There's personal information that's included, then there's connection, and then there's mental health effect. How are these related? I don't know. And the fact that this good part is thrown right in the middle of all this bad stuff, that's not good. So the overall organization of this thesis is very confusing because they have bad, good, bad, and again, I don't see the relationship. So instead, take a look up here at the top one where they acknowledge the good, but then they focus on the bad. They don't split the good in the middle in between the bad, because that's confusing. So this last one, what we want to pay attention to is making sure that the word choice articulates concisely what we want to say. So the first thing I'd point out is that this is a little bit longer of a sentence, and so take a look. Do we need to break this up? So they start with, although created with good intent, okay, what is that intent? So this is pretty broad. Could you clarify what that intent is? Social media has put the safety of society at risk. I wonder if that could be clarified a little bit. What do you mean? What kind of safety? Physical safety? Am I physically being threatened? Or is there, is it physical safety, emotional safety? What are we talking about here? And then further contributing to the fact of how undeniably detrimental, I don't think you need to have undeniably there. That's just extra words we don't need. Of how detrimental to the mental health of the greater part of society, social media has become. Social media has become. This is a lot of words for a little bit. So we need to watch out for the word choice that we're using to make sure that we're not using more words than we need. So what do you need to remember? The first semester, we talked about SOAR with our thesis statements, that they need to be specific, original, argumentative, and reasonable. So specific means not just a bing bang bongo. So different topics that are just happen to be there. So you want to make sure that there's so don't just list that, and making sure that the word choice that you have is also effective. Then original. Original means that you are not talking about the obvious, and it shows a relationship between the different topics in your thesis. So not just saying it connects and educates people. What's the relationship between that? Your thesis needs to be argumentative, meaning it's not just good and bad. You can acknowledge the good, but you have to ultimately say that it's bad, or vice versa. You can acknowledge the bad, but you have to articulate why it's good. And then finally, it needs to be reasonable. Make sure that you have evidence and commentary to support it. Okay? So that's what I would have talked about in class today concerning the thesis statement. So take a look at your thesis statement. Does your thesis statement soar?